Keen observers will recognise this next-gen Ford Ranger Wildtrak from previous videos where we fitted a dual battery system amongst a few other things. If you haven't seen that already, I'll put the link just here for you to recap. Now, since the last time that this car was here, guys, it's had an ARB Elements fridge fitted here in the back tray. The car's just come back from a trip away and this thing gets used, which is great to see. Today we're going to add to it by adding in the Meredith Metalworks short entry snorkel kit. So I'm going to show you guys what's involved with that kit here now, and then take you through step by step the process for installing that snorkel on this here, the V6 diesel Ranger Wildtrak. So this is our standard airbox, and let's call it a factory snorkel. The intake itself, although they've got it nice and high, there's actually a drilled vent here at the back. Not to mention that this plastic here is actually like two pieces put together. How watertight that even is when you're doing your river crossings up to the bonnet line is arguable. And on top of that, there's actually a gap at the bottom where this snorkel part attaches into the box. So theoretically, as low as that box is, and keep in mind it's right above the wheel arch, that could be taking in water quite easily from even that depth there. So that's the top of the tyre, something like that. Nothing too drastic in terms of depth, but let's get unpacking. All right, so this is really a nice bit of kit, this Meredith Metalworks snorkel kit. The great thing is that they send you everything you need, even down to the nutserts and the stainless steel hardware here with the Allen key heads nice and flush. The only thing they don't provide you is obviously basic hand tools. The expectation is that you would have those yourself, and it does say that in the fitting guide. Now, most of you guys are going to say, well, we're real men, we're going to just chuck this in the bin, but don't be so quick, because there is some complexities to these snorkels which you really want to make sure you get right, because cutting a hole in the outside of your car, especially a expensive vehicle like a brand new Ranger, is not something you want to get wrong. So it's important to make sure that your instructions match your product, especially when you have multiple different versions of a vehicle and also multiple different snorkel options from a manufacturer. This here, probably the most important part of the snorkel kit, your template. All right, so we're just in the midst of pulling out this inner guard. The guard clips that hold the flare on, or that go into the flare, are really flimsy. If you haven't seen the plastic scrivets before, they've effectively got like a Phillips head center in them, and the idea is that you just simply unscrew them. The problem is that once these go in, the plastic is so mushy, flimsy, that the screwdriver just spins. You can't actually get it to turn half of the time. And then once you've chewed out the center of it trying to get it to turn with the screwdriver, you've got no other choice but to try and reef them out. So I use a combination of a straight pick, a little flat bladed screwdriver, a little fine one, clip pliers, which I get from the supplier Worth. They've got little pointy ends on them. Get the edge between the two pieces split and just sort of pry it up enough that I can get the clip plier in to grab the center and sort of pull it out. You end up with a bit of hit and miss. Sometimes they break completely. Sometimes you do get lucky and they actually do unscrew and they remain perfectly intact. And one of the biggest single differences between doing things in like amateur or hobbyist land and doing things semi-professionally is tools. Using a tool like this, electric ratchet, as opposed to using a standard hand ratchet, I've got in here a series of 7mm bolts, and you're only getting like 1/8 of a turn, 1/4 of a turn each time on each bolt. So using a tool like this means that those bolts now become much easier to extract. You can do them much quicker. Amazingly, the actual flare isn't held on to the body with anything except for the clips that are underneath. A couple of bolts, 10mm screw, and one, just for the sake of it, Torx bit, tricky, up underneath, but the actual inner guard inside of the flare, because our snorkel's going to come down in here somewhere. It's probably just going to give me better access. So I'll continue on pulling this out and get these new plastic scrivets that I just discovered under here out. I can just sit this down on top of the tyre and you can see inside the intricacies of what's up underneath here. ABS module, brake lines, turbo, like there's a lot of good access here. I am probably a little bit skeptical of just a piece of plastic kind of protecting all of this here, but the access to the airbox is really good. You can see there's actually an allowance already here, which I think is for the snorkel, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to go top side to get the top side out now. Don't think there's much else that's holding it other than that push clip up there. Ah! Ah! Oh, it's really full. So, take two on draining this main vein. There's a little joiner with just like a push clip on it you can undo here and drain out some of the water. Probably would have been a good idea to start with. Ah! I'm going to let this drain, but in the meantime I'm going to go and modify the airbox. What we're doing with this one is that you can see there's the round circle here that we showed you there already. We've got to drill that out. We've got a pipe that goes inside of it, and there's a blanking plate that goes in its place to be siliconed in, so that that becomes a sealed box at the bottom. There is a drain hole there I'll probably seal up also. And once our new one comes in, we seal that in, so this whole plastic box then becomes a sealed unit. That's all sealed up inside now, mounted with the nuts and bolts that they send you. And a little seal around there and a seal around that front side. I did the outside as well, just because, you know, want to make sure that it's properly done. I had this draining out from up here. It's almost like the perfect size container for the water. So in the instructions, it doesn't really tell you once you get the big water bottle out of the guard how to get the wiper or the washer motor and the sensor out of here. It just sort of says something like, as per the owner's manual or something like that. That's the motor. It's basically just like a tapered fit with this rubber grommet, seal, whatever. And the same thing with the sensor. So you just kind of have to carefully pry them out not to break them. Different size holes, different ones. Yeah, that's the little one. That's the big one. So yeah, they'll locate in the bottom there. Probably put the rubbers in first, I guess. And then that'll have that washer bottle ready to go. Template cut and drawn. We've got our two holes marked for our center punches, but I'm just going to work with one, which is going to be this one. 2-inch hole saw. So much movement in this. Beautiful. Right on the tape line. No going back now. Hole saw is really blunt, so we're just going to cut it with the saw. One. Yeah, so my 2-inch hole saw is really blunt, so I've just used it to make like an indentation in this panel, which should make the tight curve easier to cut here with the bone saw. Our airbox I've just sat back in there with its new end on it. You got to work out which of your elbows are the right elbows, but that one's just loosely sitting there. The next component I have is the big silencer, which looks exactly like it does for an exhaust. All inside, you can see. So the idea of that is you've got kind of like a breathing ring around the outside, a little breather on the bottom, and yeah, that slides into place into that rubber there, Then our next one will attach to the snorkel up here. You can see the hole cut in the side already. That's him up the top. So we're going to line up the silencer. We're going to line up the snorkel with it on the inside, and then I can actually align it properly on the pillar and make sure that our hole's cut right. If the hole is cut right, we peel off the tape. We'll paint up all the bare or raw metal. So pull the snorkel back out, clean it up, and then it's ready to all go back together properly. The pinch weld on, just painted it with a bit of black primer underneath. So that's all Mickey Mouse. Now I've just got to drill the holes. I've already pre-marked them because we pre-fitted it. Pre-marked the 2 holes up here. Drill them out for the nutserts. Slide it on in. Once we slide her in, it'd be all ready to bolt up. I've already kind of test fitted it with the silencer and whatnot underneath. There isn't any instructions that explain the installation of the silencer, so I'm kind of just going on my best guess with that. Because it sort of talks about the silicon end on the snorkel pointing down towards the ground when it slides in, but I don't know if this pipe is different from the one without the silencer or what, because it doesn't really line up very well. So just try my best to sort of line it all up and get the hose clamps on it and get it in there and get it done. So that's all nicely mounted in there with our nutserts and run through. And it's mounted up underneath now to the silencer slash water divider component, which is down here ready to go. So the last part's going to be put the airbox in over there, bring the pipe through and connect the elbow onto the end of that. One thing I noticed, which I think is a problem, and it doesn't say anything about it in the instructions really, you reroute the washer bottle to this aftermarket one that sits over here. That's pretty much in place of the original snorkel. And it just says like, put it over there, put the motor in it, put the sensor in it, plug it in. But the hoses, the lines for the washers, one of them runs down inside here, connects up to this, and then the other one runs up over the top. So when it runs up over the top, it's hooked in here and here, and then it sort of runs down there and goes that way. This Y-piece joins that hose wherever it goes, which was connected to here, and then the other hose, which is here, which is actually connected to the washers for the bonnet. Yeah. Have a go at this and see if I can work it out without having to get some more tubing. Should be possible. So that's your new washer bottle mounted in there. It clears the airbox, and there's actually plenty of room down there for all the outlets. So what I did was, this joiner used to be the one that was attached to the bottom of the pump on the water bottle when it was up in here, and one outlet went up to the washers and the other one went across to a joiner over on this side. The hose that goes up over the top is now joining onto the free spot. I took the joiner, which is this part with the clip on it, from the hose that came from the bonnet before and attached the barb fitting, so like cut the hose a little bit and slid the onto there so that this hose now clips onto this Y piece the same way that the hose over here used to clip onto. The elbow, which used to be the one that came back this way to connect to this joiner, now routes up under here. This one's got a breather hose for a diff breather already here, but this one still has the same clip connector here. This is the hose I took the other connector from and just then basically swapped that connector from that hose for the one down the bottom and this one for the one at the top, so it hooks in. So clever rerouting of those hoses, and it looks like that's probably fixed our problemo. So all our joints are now done up. I just put the top of this airbox in, put the wheel arch back in, the flare back on, and it's done. The new washer bottle here, which replaces the big plastic one, and Eric, who owns the car, was asking me if this was a bigger or smaller capacity because he has run out of water once before already. I said, I'm not actually sure, so we can test it because I caught probably 90% of the water that came out of the other bottle. One big can of water. She's full, mate. So I probably got down to about here on the funnel, and this is about half full still. So the answer is it's about half as big. My ingenious moving of the clips here actually works really well because this wasn't working at all. Like it needs priming. But this clip here comes undone, so as soon as I undid it, I could siphon the water through, and now all of a sudden it works. This part of the job is complete. Alright, so that is it for us here on this Next Gen Ranger project. If you've got any questions, you can drop them in the comments below, or you can get in contact with us, canfitcollective@gmail.com. You can also support the channel here by purchasing some of the merchandise that you see us wearing here. We do have a store there, canfitcollective.com. You can jump on and grab yourself some stuff and support the channel. And until next time, take care, and we'll see you on the next one.